What is the most ridiculous thing someone you know does for a living? My uncle used to work in a psych ward as a security guy. He did the overnights. His supervisor told him, "Sleep your shift away. If something happens that wakes you up, get me ASAP." He basically got paid to sleep for 8 hours. What kind of company has enough budget to hire 3 people for what appears to be a one-man job? I imagine that if serious shit did go down, they would want more than one person on hand. There's a reason that they call it retard strength on Frachan. My buddy has his own startup called Surreal. He ghostwrites personal ads, responses, and texts for lonely guys. For his premium package, he'll feed you lines into your Bluetooth earpiece while you're out on an actual date. Having a Bluetooth earpiece on during a date would already be a bad start. He coaches the guys to turn it into a joke. They claim it's for work, then begin singing the Rihanna song to show they have a sense of humor and don't take themselves too seriously. I had a job at a soda company. My job was to monitor the defect bins. Cans come off the line, dented, half full, etc., and are automatically kicked out into separate bins. My job was to open the cans, pour soda on the floor, and throw away the can. I was a soda pourer. Why on the floor? Seems like that would make for a very sticky floor. Because they came off the line so quick you didn't want to cause the machine to get jammed up. Everyone had to wear the non-slip steel-toe shoes, and at the end of the night the floors were hosed down. I haven't had a soda since I left that job in 2007. Just saying. A guy I know from college makes his full-time living, with excellent benefits, changing light bulbs at a city museum and art gallery. He's not the curator, just the guy in charge of lighting. I work in museums and have a background in curation. Most people have no idea how incredibly important lighting is to a gallery. It goes far beyond simple, "It's so dark I can't see the artifact painting," or, "Damn, son, it's bright in here." Light significantly affects the condition and value of the piece on display. Lighting experts can basically charge anything they want to a museum or gallery, because they are directly responsible for much of the condition of the literally priceless objects in the gallery. I bet he was delighted when he got the job. Importing cheap furniture from India, painted in a way that looks Indian to Europeans, but nobody in India would call Indian, and sell them for shitload of money. A friend of mine dropped out of arts college to do it. I know a guy who did this with rugs from the Middle East. He was in the army, and while overseas, can't remember the country, sorry, he would buy these things for maybe a couple hundred on the high end, bring them here, and they'd sell for thousands of dollars. He has a couple rugs that sold for $10,000 plus. So, he takes that money and buys a few $1,000s worth of rugs, instead of like $300, buys a shit ton, sends them home, wife sells them while he's spraying bullets. Comes home. He's now retired at like 40 years old. Never thought of doing this with furniture though. Anyway, you can get me a picture of the furniture he's painted and sold. Post-paint job? I'd be interested to see if people here think it's worth money. I did that as well. My dad was also a contractor in Iraq and bought a Persian rug. Well, his wife's friend just happened to be a rug carpet buyer, which is apparently a thing. The rug he paid $200 for was worth $4,000 in the States. We both made quite a decent amount of money doing that. Moral of the story is stop selling drugs and start selling rugs. Somewhere out there, there is a person who is paid to eat good food and drink good wine and write about how good the food is. And guess what? They put it on their blogs with shitload of pictures and vague comments like, "The steak was rich and flavorful," or "The ramen was rich and flavorful," or "I love how the pasta was rich and flavorful." This comment was rich and flavorful. I used to have a job where I would scan boobs into a computer all day every day, digitizing a mammography film storage library. My brother-in-law is a professional juicer. He works for a company that travels to Renaissance fairs, and he owns his own custom suit of armor. Living the fucking dream. I met a professional tea taster in Scotland once. Dude told me it's pretty intense. You have to watch your diet and other shit to protect your palate. Englishman here. How do I apply? And are there biscuits? A rocket scientist. You would think all the jokes would get old. Well, you're goddamn right. My coworkers and myself are all professional artists. One day, We're struggling to calculate something. Math is hard, we said, and later joked that there's a group of rocket scientists out there struggling to draw an image on paper saying, "Drawing is hard." Has this scenario ever happened in your office? I'm a software engineer. Yesterday we did have this conversation. We were sketching mock-ups and none of yous could even get the lines straight. The trick is to hold with your hand but draw with your elbow. People try to draw with their fingers and wrists, but that doesn't work on whiteboards. Sometimes, I go to places where a bunch of people are sitting in chairs all facing the same direction. I'll stand in front of them, sometimes with a microphone, and tell them stories about things that happened to me. Sometimes they laugh and the guy who owns the chairs will give me incredibly small amounts of money. A lot of the other ridiculous jobs I've had happened while I was in the military. For a few years I was stationed at Quantico, where they manufacture shiny new Marine officers. There were entire platoons full of lieutenants, and when they shit in the woods, one of the job's enlisted men, me, had to take turns doing was disposing of their poop. With fire. The ground was frozen, so we constructed makeshift toilets from old ammo crates and metal tubs. When they were close to full, someone would dump kerosene into the tubs, light a match and stir until it was nothing but ash. They never put stirring a flaming pot of officer shit on the recruiting posters. Another thing they did at Quantico was attend etiquette classes. These guys and gals would eventually have to hobnob with generals and congressmen, but surprisingly few of them knew about cloth napkins or which fork to use first. There's even a huge banquet for each class, with hundreds of tuxedo-clad guests, silver candelabras and cigars. As a young corporal, it was my job to lead them through this maze of thank you cards and proper salutes. I wonder if any of them ever recognized me as the guy who stirred their turds. I work at the local science center playing a character called Indiana Bones. I get paid to dress up, talk to kids about dinosaurs, and play make-believe in front of a pre-recorded video. Trades MTG cards like their stocks. Makes between $25K and $30K a year at it. Rub lotion on her feet and stream that on the internet. People are weird. My job, I think, is pretty ridiculous. I look over and take care of around 70 sled dogs. I had a friend who wrote Norp reviews for a living. The actors were beautiful, but I didn't really believe the storyline. What teacher would be so flippant about his career not to lock the door of the classroom before having a threesome with 2 of his students? What school uniform policy requires such short skirts and allows that level of cleavage? Also, the quadratic formula was written on the chalkboard even though this was an English class. 3 stars. Buddy of mine get paid to do minor inspection and take readings at remote cell towers repeaters in the mountains in Colorado, Wyoming, and they provide a pretty badass truck for him, maps GPS coordinates, and the contact for who owns the land they are leasing from. He then makes his way up however he can. In his words, "I'd basically make sure it's still there." Man, that honestly sounds like a really fun gig. I am friends with someone that is a personal assistant for the wife of a CEO of a company. The company employs her, and she is the assistant to the wife who doesn't work for the company. The lady doesn't work, but apparently needs someone to do minor normal tasks for her and drive her around. She's on call for her 24/7, but has never received a call after 9 p.m. in the last 4 years. She does maybe 3 hours of actual work each day and then hangs out with the lady for the rest of the time. They let her use their Miami Beach condo for 2 weeks a year for free too. I'm glad she knows how lucky this job is, otherwise it'd annoy me a whole lot more. An acquaintance of mine does sex chat for a living. No cam, no voice, just chat. Like, just texting via an IM interface on an adult site. She's dirty rich, but has no time for any relationships, friends, or partners. She spends most of her money on clothes and expensive tech, phones, cars, etc. Combine all that with the fact that we live in the Balkans, where most people just want to work, and still barely survive from month to month, and voila. Depression. She should subcontract the chatting out and enjoy life. She never told me. I wanted to try and apply to work there, introduce myself as a woman. No one would ever find out, but she wouldn't tell me. My friend's full-time job is running a 20-20 cricket competition. He plays in a handful of teams and basically drinks beer and plays all week. I know someone who writes the funny comments between TV shows telling people what's coming up next, for a particular channel. For example, and up next, it's going to be a whale of a night in Extreme Fishing Live or whatever. He makes more money than I currently do. Guess I should have done a creative writing degree like him. It's an extremely difficult and creative job, and one I absolutely couldn't do. I know a guy who works for some branch of the Louisiana government. His job is to literally drive around the marshes in a boat and destroy an invasive species of cactus. He developed his own method of doing this, which entails him seeing the cactus, using a compound bow to tag the cactus, then he torches it with a blowtorch. He's tried a few times to convince his boss to buy him a flamethrower so he doesn't have to leave the boat, but so far he's been unsuccessful in that. Worked a factory job for a while. There was a guy on the second shift who was a bit on the simple side and liked straightforward repetitive tasks. He was a trifle tapper. He'd stand on the production line at the point where the sealed trifles came out of the cold room and into the packing area and, with his gloved hand, tap the top of each trifle firmly to check the seal was good. We'd had some problems with the heat sealing machine. Tubs would look sealed but not be airtight, and the product would spoil in transit. It was cheaper to pay the guy to tap away at minimum wage than it was to replace the machine, I guess. And he was happy enough. What is the most ridiculous thing someone you know does for a living? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.